Welcome, everybody, to Fish and Chips Episode 2. I'm here with Max. Max runs a underground game where we live, and you run Hold'em and PLO, right?
Correct.
So you've been doing this for a while now, right?
On and off for 15, 16 years, yeah.
Yeah, that's a while. So how did you get into poker?
Well, poker just a game, just because it was fun and something to do with my friends.
Yeah.
And just kind of evolved from there when, a lifestyle or freedom or whatever I saw maybe it could bring, then I guess it kind of grabbed a hold of me.
So, how did you get into, running games?
I don't know. I was a dealer for a guy to start with, and there was decent money in that, but I think mostly it's just about people. I connect with people very well, and there's a lot of trust and stuff there too, so I'm good at that.
Yeah, and obviously me and Tim have, played in your game for a while now. You definitely run one of the better games where we are. And one thing that we wanted to talk a little bit about is we see people go on the books in these games. Obviously, the game plays deep a lot of the time. Just for instance, we were playing the other night. It was a 1-3 game, and there was probably $20 grand on the table, which is pretty insane for a
1-3 game.
For a 1-3 game, right?
Blinds really don't matter.
Yeah, I mean, in that sense, they really didn't, because that was a crazy game. But basically, how do books work, or how does credit work in your mind? Do you basically will you loan someone more money versus someone else, or?
Oh, without question. There's definitely a track history of, what me and that person have done in the past, of how much I'll loan them, and they're on time paying it back or whatever it might be. So yeah, just basically an underground credit history of, how they've done.
Yeah.
So
it's kind of like a credit score, right? Yep. if they've paid you back or not.
Yep.
And so, I mean, are you ever nervous that someone might go on the books for thousands of dollars and then not pay you back?
Oh, that's by far my biggest stress.
Yeah.
Yeah. By far.
And I mean, because I don't know this for sure, but when I'm playing, a lot of the time somebody will just yell for chips, like 1,000 or 2,000, and they'll just bring over, you just bring over the chips and then you'll write it down.
There's a lot of backdoor communication that people don't see, but whether it be text or me, giving them the whole, I'm cutting you off sign, or maybe just give them the finger. So there's a lot of backdoor communication because I try not to put people's business out there for other people to see.
Yeah.
But
right, and that definitely makes sense. And so I imagine that you've probably been in a position where somebody hasn't paid you
repeatedly.
And so can I ask, what's the most you've had on the books for one person that hasn't paid you?
And that was actually a long time ago, so I actually feel okay answering this question. It was actually $17,000.
And yeah. Was this person repeated? Did he have pretty good credit?
I'm telling you, the guy would come dump $10K on a regular basis. Here you go, next day. Here you go. I'm like, but anyways, someone's good for it until they're not.
Right. And it's basically we talked about this, me and Tim, in the last episode. We talked about this, where a lot of the poker community, even if, there's so many degenerates out there, but there does still seem to be a lot of responsibility for debt. Where somebody has $3 grand in the bank, but they might go to 7K in the hole, they still intend to pay that back over, even if it takes a longer amount of time.
One thing mostly because of that is hopefully because they know it's me and I'm a good person. But a lot, most of it's probably just because they want to gamble more and they need the venue.
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
so they know that if I don't go pay this, I'm not gonna be able to play. And sometimes nothing's more important than going to go play.
Right.
So,
Right. And that's also interesting. And I've seen this with some people around town in some of the games. It seems like they're like in debt to a bunch of different people. And it's just interesting how they'll go from game to game to game because they can't go back until they...
It would be so nice if like all the games would get on one page and say, hey, if this person owes me, then they're not going over there, right? And like, and then no.
And like work as a team.
Right. Then we'd all get paid the money we're owed. But everybody's so desperate to have a player or whatever that, you know, everybody's just, it's hard. Because sometimes the difference between having a game or not having a game is one or two people in a seat.
Right.
So
it's a balance between like loaning enough money to keep the game going, but also not getting too in debt, right? Or not loaning too much credit out there. Would you say that like maybe having a losing night is ever a rare occurrence?
Oh, I probably have more losing nights than positive nights.
Really?
Oh, without question.
So then do the positive nights make up for it, or?
Well, yeah. So I don't know. It kind of seems to come in waves. So I'll have like 10 or so people come book something, and then I won't get paid I won't make any money for a week, 10 days, whatever it is. But then it seems like a couple kind of trickle in, and that's kind of where I'll go pay my bills when someone comes and pays what they owe me or whatever. But for like a game night, there's rarely any money left over at the end of the night.
It's just because there's so much on the books.
Right. Well, there's actually a lot of expenses. I mean, I pay, you know, everybody eats for free, and there's drinks, and there's cable, and so just like any business, I mean, it is a business.
And the spot where it's running,
right,
obviously is not free.
Yeah, it's not cheap either.
So yeah, I mean, it definitely is a business. You guys are making money. So obviously this is a job for you. Can you tell us a little bit about like just the basics of rake, like how rake works?
You know, they're just a percentage that comes out of each pot, and you know that's basically what a rake is.
Yeah. So what's interesting is that I've played in games where the rake is really an interesting thing because I've played in games where the rake is way less than here, but it's a worse game because there's not nearly as much money on the table.
Right.
Whereas here, obviously, like you have more expenses, the rake is more, but there's always, I've never played here where it's a shallow game.
Right.
And so there's always like enough money on the table to constitute the rake.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's why I don't feel any guilt or shame for the rake that I take, is because, you know, I do offer books, I offer a great environment, and everybody gets paid, whether I have books or not.
Right. That's something that I've never dealt with here, is where like not getting paid immediately, where a lot of the other games will, you know, if you win like $1,000 or $2,000, sometimes they can't pay you out immediately. They have to get you back in like 2 days or 3 days. And that is a little bit
unnerving.
Unnerving, yeah, because again, like this isn't regulated, right? And so that's what's crazy. Is
there's never any recourse anybody can take.
Right, because so you can't go to the cops or anything.
Right,
it's
It's just a lot of looking a man in the eye and saying, "Are you good for this or you're not?"
Right.
So,
and that's what baffles me about like some of the books that some of these games keep, because people will be on the books for like $10,000, and it's not, you know, it's not like,
I'm telling you,
it's the Wild West.
My gut wrenches every night. It is a big stress.
So then, like, do you have obviously then the players that come and they don't go on the books? Like, I don't think I've ever been on the books with you. I mean, I know that I've sat down and said, give me 500, but if I lose that, I'm not, I'm always settling at the end of the night with you.
So, I mean, there's obviously a tier so if somebody does do a book with me and I end up being short cash on the night, they do get paid last, and they might be the next kind of day, but it's just kind of a two-way street. If I'm going to book you, then obviously, but people that don't go on the books, they always get paid. So it's just a tier, just a, you know,
it's a give and take. It's basically, yeah. And that definitely makes sense. So I heard a story. I haven't talked to you about it. I heard a story about this game And I wanted to see if it was
Which story is this going to be?
I heard a story that somebody went on the books for like a few thousand, I think it's between like a few and $5,000, lost it, and then like walked outside with you and then just took off running.
Oh, that's a true story. Yeah, we actually called that guy the runner. In fact, he was with a friend of his that had no idea what was going on, and I can sit there and imagine that they're walking down the street, and the guy had to lean over to his friend and said, "Hey, we got to run," and that's how it had to go down. It's so crazy.
He brings him to this game, this poker game, and his friend's like, "Okay, this is interesting,"
Right.
and then loses a bunch of money, and then is like,
we
gotta run, like without even warning him initially.
But the runner did end up paying me like 3 months later.
Which is, again, kind of
Right,
ties it back,
yeah.
where like people, even though it's not regulated, like a lot of people will go in debt and they won't have it immediately, but they'll still
I think people want to do the
wanna pay
right
it
thing,
back. Yeah.
but
And
it's gambling. They get over their head.
A big part of it is also just wanting to continue to play.
Right.
And so it's basically, hey, if I want to go back to this game and play, which
Or
is
that
one of the
or
better
that word
games.
tilt we both know.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. And so obviously you've done this for a long time. You've seen a lot of stuff.
A lot of stuff I can't say.
Yeah. What's like the most you've seen someone lose in one night?
$100,000 actually.
Really? You
Yep.
saw someone lose $100,000 in one night?
Yep.
Was that on the books?
It was, but he came and paid the next day
Wow.
in $20 bills.
Are you serious? How do you what do you do with that much cash?
Me and a buddy. That wasn't my game though. I was just dealing in that game. Yeah, a buddy and I just sat back and counted $20 bills for
He just brings like 5 briefcases full of $20.
just some bricks.
Who has that much cash in 20s? Like, if you have that
Don't
much
ask,
money,
don't tell.
Yeah, apparently. But if you have that much money, you gotta you would at least think it would be in hundreds.
Yeah, $100,000.
But holy crap! Like, you can't just take that to the bank,
right?
right? Because that is definitely gonna pop up somewhere. That's gonna red flag something if you try and deposit that much cash. Wow, that's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
Again, on the books, but
But had good history.
Had good
obviously.
history.
Right.
Obviously, is known for being well off. I assume.
Right.
Obviously, if I come in and I'm like, "Hey, give me $100,000," you might think twice.
I might
about
give you
it.
the cutoff sign.
Yeah, the subtle cutoff
Yep.
sign. Well, if I ever want $100,000, don't give it to me, okay?
enough.
If I'm ever in the game that much, which I really hope that I'm not. But
Right.
and so I'm sure you've seen a lot of crazy stuff. What's the most tilted you've seen someone?
I don't know. I've had people call the cops because they're so pissed off. I've seen people punch walls.
Have you ever had someone flip a table or anything?
I've heard stories. I actually had a buddy that was his signature move, but I never actually saw it. But yeah, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, I feel like, because I've seen a lot of crazy stuff just playing in the games.
I've seen car titles exchanged at the table.
You know what? Actually, what I saw in an underground game once was a $10,000 coin flip. 2 guys did a coin flip for 10 grand, and the guy who lost signed over his car.
Wow.
To him.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it's just to put. First of all, if you don't have that money available, the fact that you're gonna do that is just the gambler mindset is crazy.
I just think most gamblers don't think they're going to lose or don't plan on losing.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think anyone comes planning on losing, but I think that people
They should know it's a possibility.
Oh, you should plan. You should come planning to lose.
That's me.
And hoping to
Right.
win. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's why when I sit down at the table, I only play with what I'm willing to lose.
Right.
Obviously, I've never been in debt to any game or anything, just because. I mean, for one, if I got into debt and I couldn't pay it, I wouldn't be able to sleep.
Right.
Right. That. To me, that's just. That's
Well,
just
I wish there were
crazy.
more people like you.
But I'm at the table and people are saying they bust and they're like, give me 2,000, give me 2,000,
Right.
you know, give me 2,000. And it's just like, and then they're just on tilt and they're dumping. And it's just, because we've all had that feeling when you're
Right.
driving home after a game and you've lost a bunch.
And you just have that pit in your stomach. You're
Yeah.
like, what did I just do?
Yep.
That was so dumb.
Yep.
Yep.
So me and obviously we're not going to talk about anyone specific. Me and Tim last time kind of talked about how we just playing in these games see poker like ruin people's lives. Like it genuinely like destroys people.
Yeah.
Like I've seen people that have, you know, they're pretty well off, then they start playing poker, they're bad at it. Because we, you know, honestly, like the majority of the poker community is not good at poker. But I think everyone feels like they're good at poker.
Right.
Right? But we've seen people that come in and start playing these games and just like lose. And like lose their jobs or get divorced or then they go way in debt. And I'm sure that you've seen that firsthand.
Oh, without question.
And do you almost like it's interesting? You're in an interesting spot because you're like running the game, right?
Right.
And you're seeing this, and you need players, but you're a good person, so you also don't want someone to get hurt too bad. I'm sure.
Right. So it is. I don't know. It's a gray area for me because I sit back sometimes. In fact, I talked about it with somebody today on the phone, which is kind of ironic, because you know about making the game smaller or doing this or that. And the truth is, if I'm going to do this, is I need to run games. But the truth is they're going to go somewhere else if I don't. Maybe that's how I feel better about myself.
Yeah, I mean,
but
serious gamblers,
but it's true.
Will.
Right.
And that's the same thing we're talking about with people on the books. Even if they're on the books somewhere for $10,000 and they can't pay it, they'll go get on the books at a different game for another $5,000 or $10,000.
So I guess that's how I ease my mind for whatever responsibility I have in, hurting people's lives, I guess. You want to say it that way?
That is very true, though. It's like, obviously, you're running a business. Obviously, everyone is an adult. They have a responsibility to themselves. Right? And I'm sure you've kind of cut people off before and you've given that.
Oh, without question.
Yeah, cut off.
No, and I'll tell people, I'll text people the next day and say, hey, and I'll just tell them, if you need a couple of days, if you don't want me to text you for a while, whatever you need me to do. Because, that's the last thing I want to do is really impact somebody's personal life. Right. This is supposed to be fun.
Right.
Right.
And it is fun, but there is a massive dark side to this world.
Oh.
Just out of curiosity, and this is, again, something that we talked about last episode, what would you say, like the percentage-wise, are winning players?
Oh. 1. I think
pretty nuts.
Yeah. I think I might know 3 people that I would think are positive in 15 years.
That much? Because I know I'm positive. And I know that Tim is positive.
But Tim's fairly new to at least my scene. So,
yeah.
But...
Oh, yeah. So, but that's so crazy. That's so crazy because we were talking about that, and we think it's like, probably like 3 to 5% of poker players are profitable over a long period of time.
Yeah.
And that just comes back to people, I think, being overconfident in their game. And obviously, like, I'll do this.
Well,
Tim will do it. We'll come just spew. Have
confident,
fun.
but also, most of the people that come here are for entertainment. They're not necessarily coming to make money.
Right.
And secondly, is nobody has self-control or bankroll management.
Right.
So,
well, there's very few actual professional poker players. Right. Majority of people have day jobs, and this is, like you said, like going to the casino.
And I can see them 3 to 5 days a week. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah. It's pretty crazy, man. It's nuts. It's just it's very interesting that, and I think people don't even realize it because they have day jobs, right? And so like they come and they drop like a few $100.
Well, just like my significant other, she's blown away by this whole thing. And we've been together for a while. She's like, I don't understand. She's like, how are you even a good person? It's crazy. Yeah, they just don't understand.
Yeah. God, it's nuts. Do you have anything off the top of your head, like anything crazy that's happened that you've witnessed while running?
I've had violence. I've had elation. I've had people pay off their houses with money they've won. I've had you name it. I've probably been it. I mean, what haven't I seen?
So have you seen this is pretty much a yes, I'm assuming, but you've seen people get into like a fist fight?
Oh yeah, without question. I've seen guns drawn.
Really, at your own game? So
how do you handle I was dealing that game.
Do you just kind of say, "Hey guys, let's cool it.
Let's
not shoot each other over some money."
That was a crazy night. Yeah. I've had a gun pointed at me. Yeah,
Can you tell us kind of what happened in that?
And which one?
Where a gun was pointed at you?
Well, so the Molly's game or whatever, that whole underground mafia stuff, I'll just say that stuff is real.
Really?
Yeah, so, yeah. Yeah, this stuff's real.
And you think that's worldwide?
I would think so. I don't see how it's not, because nothing's regulated. I mean, what's our recourse? What do? Close down our game and go to the cops? Or go face this mafia person or whatever and I'm not that guy. So yeah.
It's just easier to obviously you don't want to start shit.
Right.
It's not worth it.
It's not worth it. So you just pay your little fee and you go on the next day. It's that simple.
That is nuts.
It's nuts to you, but it's my everyday life.
Right. Well, you've done it for so long that I'm sure that it's just like second nature now.
It's just one of the bills.
It's just one of the bills. Like you have a spreadsheet and it's just
there's the line right there for it.
Holy crap. So basically if somebody stiffs you, we just
write it off. There's really no recourse. I'm not that person that's going to go hunt someone down or send somebody after them.
Break someone's kneecaps.
Yeah, never, not once. I mean, the most thing I'll ever do is if I know they're playing somewhere else, I'll sell it to somebody for half price.
Sell their debt?
Yeah. But that's it.
And, I mean, again, you're a nice guy. You're not going to go break kneecaps or anything.
It's not worth it.
You just hope at the end of the day that your profit has... Even if you take a big hit, it's going to be more, obviously.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that's very, very interesting.
It's not an easy life. I don't suggest it for anybody out there listening.
And I mean, I'm sure it sounds very tempting, right? To a lot of people.
It sounds way cool.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
some of my close friends that don't know the ins and outs of it, but just see, that I can kind of do what I want here and there, or I can come to work or I don't. And sometimes, I'll pull out, $10K out of my pocket, and they're like, but you know what? I went 2 months without having $1,000 in my pocket. So it's a roller coaster.
Right.
So.
It's kind of like cryptocurrency.
Right? Yeah. Down right now.
Then up. It's volatile.
Yes, it is very volatile.
You could say that it's very volatile. Yeah, and... I mean, it's interesting. There's a person that I know currently owes you money. We'll just say a person.
Okay, which one? There's several, but go ahead.
This person also... What's funny is that I started playing this person Chinese poker. Okay. And we settled for $1 a point.
Right.
Or we didn't settle, but we... And I've always seen her play, right? At games around town.
Well, rumor is to work it off. That's just a rumor, but go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, it's very interesting because we're playing, and I see her with a lot of money in front of her. And so, obviously I like to play Chinese poker. And right. So we start playing and she says, they suggest $1 a point. And so I'm like, okay, that's fine. So now I'm up $600, which isn't in the grand scheme of things a ton of money, but right now I'm up $600. And then I start hearing stories from dealers where they're like, oh, that person owes me $1,000, told me to fuck off when I asked for it. And then I know that they owe you a ton of money and they owe these other games money. So I'm just like, well, fuck, like, I'm just, at this point, I'm just not expecting to get it because obviously I'm not.
Welcome to my world.
Exactly. Yeah, it's crazy. Like, it's just so.
Well, and then the crazy thing about the kind of brings up, so when somebody owes me money, I know the only way I get it back is if I loan them more money to play. And they're usually a terrible player anyways, which is why they've never won. So I'm sitting there loaning this person money saying, oh, can you please just win this hand?
So you're literally, they owe you money, but you got to loan them more money to hope that they win to pay you back.
Yeah.
Wow.
Because people don't like to pay back unless they win it. I don't know what that mentality is. I've never had that mentality, but they do.
Yeah, we were talking about this the other night. It's like, it's almost like it's not seen as real money.
Right. So whoever thought up the chip, he's obviously genius.
Yeah.
Instead of
because if you're betting $100 bills, people would probably
I guess
play
it stings
differently.
more. I guess right.
Yeah.
I've never done it really. I mean, I guess I've had $100, $100 bills on my table when I'm playing in Vegas, or whatever. But yeah, I never obviously at a home game.
What was funny is as a joke once in one of the games that I play, just a smaller friendly game, I brought in like wrapped $25 bills. Because they have the bricks of hundreds. I bought in wrapped $1 bills and put it behind my stack, and it actually caught on. It was funny because then somebody the next week brought like $200, in $25 wraps that they would like bet with and stuff. Right? Yeah, which was kind of funny, but yeah, like a lot of the time people just don't see it as like real money, and it's so easy.
Which is, I'm sure, why the casinos do it that way as well.
Right. Right. It would be vastly different if you had to bet with like actual cash.
Yeah, can you imagine trying to run a bluff with, 1,000 instead of a 2 for, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
With actual cash? That bluff would be a lot harder to pull off.
Yeah, you'd be sweating a lot more. Your poker face might fail a little bit when you do that. Oh, that is interesting. Do you think games could still run if like books were never kept?
Not with as many games as there are. So competition-wise, no. There's just not enough player pool or enough money.
Such an interesting ecosystem. It's like you have to have debt.
Yeah.
In order for it to succeed.
It's not an easy life.
Wow. Do you think? Obviously, you're a good person. Obviously, you're not a muscle. You're just give people the benefit of the doubt. Do you think that there is other people out there that do like go collect in the old like mafia style way where it's like you have to this week to pay me off or I'm going to break your kneecap?
I would think so. But maybe not even, my game's probably the bigger game that we've all seen. But I've been to some underground games in Texas just as a player, where, it's even $10,000 to get in the door and there's topless girls walking on around and it's a 5-star chef. And I would think if you stiff one of those guys, it might be different, I think.
It's kind of like the underground layer of Vegas, where it's all flashing lights, but there's a lot of...
I would think so, yeah.
Real
right. We've all seen movies that way.
Right.
So
yeah.
There's a lot of truth in the movies that we don't want to acknowledge, I think, so.
Yep. Well, kind of like you said with Molly's Game, which is very...
that movie was more accurate than I'm surprised it was as accurate as it was.
Yeah, and when I mean, there were like 2 things in that movie that bothered me. One is he says,
raise?
I bet 2.
Yep.
Yeah,
I got that too.
I bet 200,000. He's like raised to 300,000.
Yep.
Yeah, and it's like obviously, and it's like that also like blows me away because you would think like a multi-million dollar production, they would get like the basics of poker correct, right?
I got that right away too.
There was one other thing that I can't remember what it was, but it was something like that. But for the majority of the movie, yeah, it was pretty accurate, But yeah, that. And I was thinking about that too, like when she starts to rake her game in the movie, and she's raking like $30,000 a hand.
Right. Well, because it's all relative.
Right, because they're playing, so it's only 2% of the pot.
Right. So, yeah, it's all relative. I mean,
Right.
I was playing the games I just mentioned in Texas. It was 10% of the pot, no max.
That's insane.
Yeah.
That's so crazy.
But there's enough money on the table to absorb it.
I would never play in a game with rake that was 10% no max. But
why not if the person that just buys in for another $100K?
that is so crazy. Like, there would have to be so much money on that table to
Right,
constitute
absorb it.
that.
Yeah.
And so, I don't even know how you would be able to like launder that sort of money, because that, like, when you're making that much like cash, like, you can't.
Well, can you imagine what their books are like?
Yeah, I know.
So, I mean, so do you think I'm rolling the money? I'm not. I'm sure it's just all relative. I'm sure his expenses are 10 times what mine are.
And like Molly's game again, who is it's based on a true story.
Right.
She had like 2.5 million on the street that was owed to her.
Right. It's all relative.
Yeah, that's very, very interesting. So, not to get too off subject, but I'm curious. Obviously, I see regulars when I play in your game, but I also see a constant like update of new faces. How do you like keep the game going? How do you like find people?
Most of that's a friend of a friend, mostly. You know, obviously a trip to a nearby town that, you know, that gambling might be legal in is another venue. But most of it's just a friend of a friend.
Kind of like how I got invited to your game.
Right.
I can't even remember. I think it had to do with Tim, but
Right.
yeah. Regardless, I remember that's how. I mean, that does make sense, because that's how I've basically been introduced to all the games.
Right. Yeah, and that's most people.
It's
Me
just-
too. 1,000.
Yeah.
You know, my best friend's brother liked to play at the time, and
Right.
here I am.
Right.
So.
And I'm not. I guess it's like that totally makes sense. One of the games that I play in is more of a closed off game,
Right.
so I don't see a lot of new faces there. It's a lot of the same people, but you know, obviously a bigger game like this, you have to have
More blood.
more blood. You have to have coming in, right?
Yep.
And it's interesting because people will they'll come and they'll like lose like a ton of money, and then they'll disappear,
Yep.
and then they'll like resurface like 6 months later.
That's right.
And you know, you're like, oh hey, I haven't seen you in like 6 months. I guess
and
you got some money.
and it's funny because you don't even miss a beat.
Right.
I'll ask about their kids, how work's been going, blah blah blah. Like I just saw them yesterday, but then that's just me, and
Yeah,
maybe
'cause
that's why I've been
you're-
successful.
Yeah, you're a people person.
Yeah, I text you know, I don't know, probably 30 players on Thanksgiving. Wish them all a happy Thanksgiving, see how they were doing, and whatever. So
I didn't get a text.
well, fuck you. So
And I feel like that's also important. Like one of the reasons why I like playing in the other game and in this game is because, you know, I'm not like, you're not an asshole, and you're a people
Personable.
person. You're personable. You know, I don't feel unsafe
Right.
here. I remember one time I was at a game and they had security cameras. It was in the industrial side of town. They had security cameras outside, and they had it on a monitor inside. And it's like 2 a.m, right? Nothing is open.
oh, I know this story. I wasn't there, but I know this story.
So nothing is open, right? Like barely a car driving by. All of a sudden, we're all sitting there, and like 9 or 10 cop cars with their lights blazing swarm up to the front of the building, and I was like, "Holy fucking shit!"
Right,
Like
this
this
is
place
really
is
going
getting
down.
raided. I
Right.
was like, I immediately was like, I'm gonna, you know, holy shit! Like, what do I do? Like, I was just like, was completely drawing a blank, and so what actually happened was there was a truck that swerved in and threw a duffel bag of cocaine out the window And then all these cops like get him on the ground, and it apparently was this huge like police
Sting
operation that was happening that just so happened to end up where we were playing an illegal poker game in the industrial side of town at like 2 a.m. And the craziest thing was they thought like someone ran around the back, which is the entrance to get into where we were.
Right.
So we had these like federal agents that were like pounding on the door because they went back there and there's like 20 cars back there. So they thought someone ran back there. And so we're all sitting up there like, what do we do? So eventually, the person running the game went down and talked to him, wouldn't let him up and talk to him. And I was like, cash everyone out, like, let's just turn this into a man cave. Like, cash everyone out. Like, we're watching TV. We're having a party up here. Like, and they refused to stop playing. Everyone refused to stop playing.
I know how it is.
Yeah. Like, that's, and then Tim was playing at a game. That same person who runs that game that happened to him, they moved. And the same exact thing happened, he said. I wasn't there for that time, but they're playing, and all of a sudden, like, 8 cop cars with their lights blazing swarm up to the front. And he said that people, like, jumped over the table and, like, booked it out the back and, like, just swarmed everywhere that time. But apparently it was, like, the cops pulling a prank on one of their friends that owned a business next door.
Wow.
Which, for that to happen twice to the same person is, like, pretty nuts. It's pretty nuts. So obviously you've ran for a long time. Do you ever are you ever worried about getting like busted?
I mean, I guess it's always there. I try to be aware of my surroundings and stuff, but I was busted a while back and really nothing happened. I got a $1,000 fine and no probation or anything. In fact, the only person who really won in that whole thing was the fucking attorney. I paid $12,000 too. And in fact, even the DA's like, we have nothing here, but we spent so much time on money that someone has to go down. And really nobody went down. So,
that's lucky though, right? Was it originally going to be like a...
Yeah, originally I got charged with a 2nd degree like felony or RICO. So, but it all went
Was
away.
that just for like racketeering?
Yeah, RICO, racketeering, same thing.
Oh, yeah. Interesting. I'm not up to date with all the terminology.
The terminology.
How did that go down? Were there like, did they just come up during a game or like?
We hadn't even started yet, but yeah, they come up before the game and sat there for like 6 hours. Everyone that walked up the stairs, they would all handcuff and put them on the ground, and yeah, it was not fun.
So they were like waiting outside for like 6 hours. Is that?
No, inside the building, and every new player that come up the stairs.
Oh, they were waiting for people to come like play.
Yep.
Okay, well, if that ever happens, can we have like an emergency like button, like a panic
right,
button?
something. I need
like
put a neon sign up or something,
yeah,
right?
Yeah, you get flip a switch, like a red light. It's like the red light's on.
Red
Everyone,
light's on.
keep driving. keep
I
going.
actually had a bad idea.
That's so crazy. And do you know what happened to any of the players?
They got what was equivalent to a speeding ticket fine
For playing in the game. Wow. I wonder if anyone tried to fight it. If they tried to like go get it.
I can't imagine. I was in my own battle at the time, so which ended up being nothing. So,
but that also like I think puts more confidence in people being comfortable playing, right?
Yeah,
it's like not gonna.
So. And it's not, and obviously it's not just me saying it. And there were 13 players that day that all said the same thing, that we just got a speeding ticket fine and whatever. So,
wow. I would say that's pretty lucky. Like,
yeah, maybe.
That I mean, that's fortunate. I maybe that's how it always is.
Maybe.
I just would have assumed it would have been a lot harsher, I guess.
I would have. I mean, I thought so too.
And
I will tell you, if you ever get busted, just don't say anything.
Until
They're
you
not
talk
your
to a
friends.
lawyer.
Right. Just
They'll
because
act
I
like
was
your
scared
friends.
of shit.
They'll act like your
And
friends.
I rattled off all kinds of shit. And looking back, I'll never do that again. But
so yeah, because anything you say,
right,
they can obviously
twist or turn or use or whatever.
So I guess like how did it initially go down?
They came in like in SWAT gear, and there were only 3 of us there. And
so they like kicked down the door basically.
Basically.
Do you have any idea how that got led to you?
Yeah, but that's something I can't go into.
Okay.
Because that'll totally give away a lot of stuff. So
okay, no, that's totally fine. That's very interesting though. Like, I like wonder what the players think
Yeah.
walking up the stairs or walking
man,
into the
I
building.
felt so bad because every time I heard, police, boom, and they slam them up against the wall and handcuff them, bring them in. Like, oh man,
It's like a pizza delivery guy. It's like,
Yeah.
be sure to deliver the pizza.
right? Oh man, yeah. I remember
Huh.
that.
Interesting. Well, I mean, at least everyone, got like a speeding ticket.
Right,
Basically,
yeah, no big
the
deal.
equivalent.
Yeah.
So I know that PLO you run like 5-5, right?
Right.
PLO regularly, like during the week. Those games get massive.
Yeah.
I mean, they have a tendency to get really big.
Right.
Do you ever get? And you've said that you get stressed, but do you ever get like really nervous when there's a ton of money on the table?
No, in fact, a lot of the money goes off-site. You probably didn't even know that.
I did not know that.
Yeah. So a lot of money goes off-site, and so
So you just basically have like a plan, like if we have a ton of money here,
right.
like in case we get
So,
robbed,
right.
because I've heard of stories of games getting robbed.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, the money's not here.
That's actually that's really smart, right? The money's not here because it's all on credit. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, that too sometimes, but
Yeah, I mean that's a way smart thing to do, obviously. Have you like personally been a part of or heard of games getting like robbed?
I've never been a part of one. But I have a couple of people who's been through a couple.
Like people running it or people that have been in like the room?
Both. Yeah.
And it's just like, can you like talk about that at all?
Well, just they came in and they never get much money, which is dumb, because they're, from what I understand, it's just a smash and grab as fast as they can, and they'll search a couple of these little pockets and they leave. And
hey, give me that notebook with all that debt. That's
right.
my debt now.
Right. I mean, exactly. I mean, someone that really wants to rob a poker game will look into it if they're smart at all and say, hey, what are we going to go? We go get a chicken noodle soup and a pizza and $800,
Yeah.
So I mean, but people have been hit over the head, and man, one chick had a sword to her neck, and
A sword?
A sword.
Who robs a place with a sword?
right, that's what I'm saying. They're not very bright people.
Comes in dressed like Zorro, like
Right?
yeah.
So yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I can definitely see though people who like shady people like who come in or play in games, right? Because you got to imagine that these people have either played in your game or
Right.
no, obviously
Kind of staked it out or
yeah,
whatever.
yeah. But like the other day, I came in to play Hold'em, and it was 3-handed, but there was still like probably like what 20, 25 grand on the table, like 3-handed.
Right.
So somebody like a lowlife coming in and thinking that much money is on the table,
Right.
Obviously might be like tempting, but it's awesome that you don't keep anything.
Well, that's
here.
where you kind of go back to what we were talking about earlier, where we kind of skipped over was, that line where I pay, they're kind of in charge of, making sure that things are safe,
So it's basically like security.
basically.
So it is actually like, in a way, it's good. It's
Right?
interesting, but it's like good in a way, kind of.
Yeah, I mean, who knows, right?
Right.
I mean, it's probably protection from themselves, but whatever. So
Right.
it is what it is.
Yeah, very interesting. So, do you ever like? Is there tension between game owners at all?
Oh, without question. More with them than with me, because I'm always revered as like I don't know. I think I threaten more games than they threaten me, I think. So I'm always on everybody's radar. Everybody wants to talk shit about me.
Which I don't get. Like,
Yeah. I mean, I don't either. I don't talk shit about anybody. Just do your own thing. I
right.
take care of my 4 walls, you take care of yours, and
Right.
whatever.
And the players are obviously going to choose
Right.
which game they want to go to.
Right.
And obviously, at the end of the day, it pays to be a nice host.
I hope so. That's always been my avenue.
Yeah. And I heard one of the game owners, like at the other location, wanted to like come in, but was like very afraid to come into your game, and you were like, I don't give a fucking shit. Like, who
Right.
cares? Like,
Yeah, because you'll go to another game. Don't grab anybody's number and don't talk about your game and whatever. I'm like, if you come over here, I'll pass out your number if you want. I don't give a shit.
Right. Because at the end of the day, it's just like they'll play wherever they want to play.
We're all adults. We're supposed to be. We don't act like it, but we are.
Right. Right.
That unnerves me so bad. I've worked hard for my reputation. I hate when people make up shit and slander and whatever.
Yeah, and again, we are kind of on the seedy underground. Right. So, I'm sure that people will badmouth just basically to try and acquire players for...
Right. Oh, without question.
For their game.
Yeah, that's their whole motivation.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. So, have you ever had to, like, forcefully eject somebody from your game?
No, I've had it stand in between a couple of fights or whatever, but I've never had to. That we were talking about the incident with the gun. We actually had a security guard of that game, and he actually
took care of it.
Yeah, forcibly removed that person from the game. But.
Do you remember what the hand was? It PLO or Hold'em?
I think there was one game of each. There were a lot of people there that night. And we could see the writing on the wall coming. Not the gun, but the fight we could see coming.
They've probably been bickering like slightly throughout the night and whatnot. So you can see the tension. Yeah. And then it takes like one slow roll or one whatever bad beat.
Actually, the universal fight word I've learned is bitch. If you repeatedly call somebody a bitch, you're going to fight. So I've learned that.
You are a bitch. Yeah. Oh, it's on. It's on.
That's basically the universal fight word.
We're throwing fists. It's on. But like, so people like throwing, actually like punching each other, and you got to like pull them apart.
I saw two girls fight one time.
Did you just film that one, or?
Actually, one of the players did pull out his phone, and I don't know how much of he got it, but I promise you it happened. I saw it happen.
Link in the comments. I'm just kidding.
Right?
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Where I used to live, I'm actually like surprised that like games don't get robbed more, like personally. Mm-hmm. And maybe a big part of that is because it is not regulated and like it's underground, and it's in a weird way it's like it might be like it might help to not get robbed more because it's more of the Wild West, right? But where I used to live, there are poker houses, poker rooms,
legal, right?
Legal,
right?
And there's no rake and no security, and a lot of the time there would be like $50,000 or $60,000 in cash in one bag behind the counter, not even in the safe. And when you cashed people out, you would just count their chips, pull out this literal wad of money, and just count them out. But they would run 2 to 5 tables, 3 or 4, 1-3 tables, and there would just be and there's no credit.
Right.
It's only cash. There's not Venmo. There's not, books or anything like that. It is all cash. And I have never heard of any one of those places getting robbed.
Well, it's probably the mafia probably owns them. That's what I'm saying. I mean, if you know that the mafia owns this place, you're not going to go rob it.
Right. And that's so much like a movie. Like, that's so crazy.
There's a lot of truth in movies.
Oh, that is so crazy. We did hear about an underground game up there getting robbed. What happens is all these card rooms close down at like 2 a.m. But then people want to keep playing, obviously. And so that's when the underground side of it will open. Right. That's the only time that they can run is because
everybody's at the other one.
You're going to play rake free,
right? Or
are you going to play an underground game that's not regulated with rake?
Right.
But then they'll go play those games once the legitimate clubs shut down. And apparently there was a decent sized game, and apparently 4 guys with ski max came down with shotguns and like totally cleaned them out and robbed them. But I mean, I know I've had times where I've played for 30 hours straight, just going from place to place to place to place to place, and you crash for like 12 hours.
Right.
How long would you? Because you like to play too.
Right.
Like how long would you say your longest session is?
Just playing, or that a game actually went?
Let's answer playing first.
Not that long. I mean, I don't know, 24 hours maybe.
Which is still a long time, but
right,
it's not,
but not in poker world
no,
terms.
because that's I think if
And,
you're
and
a regular,
I know that was a run in Vegas, the one I'm thinking of. So
if you're a regular poker player, chances are you've had at least one 24-hour period of play.
yeah, and I remember that run was just crazy. So it has to be my longest session.
What about like running a game? So
So-
that's different because
right.
people will filter in and out.
Well, yeah, because I've had games go 4 or 5 days straight.
You've had games go 4 or 5 days straight?
Yeah. Yeah, I used to have, in fact, at the other place that got busted, I'd have a list of people at 8 o'clock in the morning that the game was still going. I was supposed to call them.
They're all 70 years old or older.
Or business owners or whatever,
Yeah.
just,
Yeah.
entrepreneur or whatever. Yeah. I had a list at 8 o'clock in the morning if we happen to still be going.
You would send
Yeah,
like
so
a
no.
separate list. Like, don't
Yep.
text me at night to play, but
Yep.
8 a.m. in the morning, shoot me that text if you're still running.
Yep.
But half the time, that's the best time to come in because everyone's
Everybody's
groggy
tired.
headed,
Yeah. Without
tired,
question.
right?
Yeah.
And plus, if the game's been running that long, chances are there's like
Stuck and playing bad or
stuck. There's a lot of money on the table because
Yeah.
people have rebought. And so, I mean, it's kind of like Rounders, right? Where he's like, those guys are coming off like a 30-hour session.
right.
They
yeah,
can't even
no.
see straight.
But once
Yeah.
again, a lot of truth in movies.
Yeah, definitely. So on a personal level, what's your best, if you don't mind me asking, what's your best like run, like playing poker?
So I remember turning like $700 buy-in to almost 24,000
In what time frame?
in like 13 hours.
That's fucking crazy. Did you go from like
Yeah,
1-3 to 5-10?
I started at 1-3, and in fact, that was the only time in my life I ever played 10-25 blinds. And the only reason I played it because the previous dealer I knew from somewhere else, I heard his voice. I went up there, and sure enough, he was dealing. I'm like, I'll sit down. I'm running well, whatever. I'm on one buy-in. And I remember my hand, I had ace king of spades. I flopped 10 jack of spades and something else. And set over set, I got all my money in, whatever it is, $8,000, whatever it was. Blanks. I gave the dealer $500 and walked out.
See, and that's what separates you from the majority of people.
Right.
It's you're like,
Done.
Fuck
What,
yeah,
what
I got
else?
all this
What else
money.
do I want?
right. So you flopped the nuts.
Nut flush draw.
Oh, nut flush draw with a straight draw.
Right, with a straight draw.
And you binked it on the Turner
Yep,
River
yep.
versus set over set.
Yep. Man, I couldn't believe it.
That's,
I'm never folding this hand. It's like check, re-raise on
No,
the
you
flop.
have- you have
We're
two overs
all
and
three
nut
way on
draw.
the flop, right.
yeah, nut draw. Yeah.
Yep, sure enough. 3 of spades on the turn.
And then you're just like, at that moment, you're probably just
don't
like,
pair the board.
don't pair the board, don't pair the board, please.
Yeah.
Please.
Yeah,
That's-
9 of diamonds on the river. I remember 3 of spades, 9 of diamonds.
And then you just like have the nuts, so you're just
Yeah.
like,
I gave the guy a rack
yeah.
of red, the dealer, and racked up and left. Yeah.
that's also a lot more than that typical people would give the dealer.
Oh well, maybe, but that's just kind of what we do in our world is we overtip. Yeah, I even overtip waitresses. I never leave less than like $10.
Yeah.
I don't care if I went and got coffee. It's just,
Yeah.
I don't know.
I feel I'm right there with you. Like,
Yeah.
and part of it's because I worked in the service industry, so when I like leave a tip, I actually genuinely will argue with people that are horrible tippers
Yeah, no, me too.
because it's just I don't know.
Right.
And yeah, but not to get too off topic. So how many days, as we wrap up, how many days do you run during the week?
I'd say anywhere from 2 to 6. There's a lot of variance.
What's interesting, because I'll usually play in your game like twice a week, but I don't play PLO,
Right.
and so that's like half of it, right? Is PLO, and so what's interesting to me is games rarely run or are strong on Saturdays,
Yeah, that's true, actually.
and I wonder if that's just because like people or it's like maybe like Saturday's like family time.
Yeah, that's what I would think. If they're going to the lake or they're not in town or whatever.
Right.
But yeah, my games are definitely stronger Monday through Friday.
So like during the week until 2 a.m. is like
Yeah.
strong, and then like the weekends aren't, which is like it
Yeah,
baffles me.
I'm sure most of my players go straight from here to a shower to work. You know. And,
Yeah, they'll play until like
Yeah.
7 in the morning and then
Yeah.
just go right to work.
Yep.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy. Well, Max, thank you so much for letting us interview you.
Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah, I really, really appreciate that.
Hopefully, it'll bring some enlightenment to those people out there.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. Well, thank you again.
Yep.